I'm Claire from Seattle. I met this guy, Alex, on Tinder. He looked normal in his pictures, cute in a soft, approachable way. Nothing flashy, nothing overdone. We started chatting, and right away there was a spark. He was funny, thoughtful, and easy to talk to. After a few days of back and forth, he asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. It seemed low pressure, so I agreed. We met at this indie cafe a few blocks from my apartment. In person, Alex was exactly like he seemed online, relaxed, friendly, and attentive. He asked good questions, made me laugh, and never dominated the conversation. Honestly, it was the best first date I'd had in a while. We parted ways with an easy hug, and I remember walking home feeling giddy. A few days later, he suggested dinner. He picked a cozy little place with fairy lights strung across the ceiling. He paid the bill, opened doors, even walked me to my car without any pressure. It was refreshing, normal, safe. I started to let my guard down. By the third date, I felt comfortable enough to meet at his place. Normally I wouldn't go to someone's apartment so soon, but something about him put me at ease. His apartment was clean and neat, though oddly sparse. Almost like he had just moved in. A couple of abstract paintings hung on the wall, and everything smelled faintly of eucalyptus. We ordered takeout and watched a movie. Halfway through the night, the shift began. He started complaining, first about the rent, then about losing hours at work. I sympathized, offering the usual, "that sucks," and nods. Then he asked if I could lend him some money. "Just a couple hundred," he said. "Nothing crazy." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. His face remained serious. When I told him I wasn't comfortable loaning money so soon, his expression hardened. He rubbed his temples and stared at me with a strange intensity. "I thought you were different," he said. "I really thought you were someone who got it." There was something in his voice. Disappointment? Or a threat cloaked in hurt? "I'm sorry," I said. "I just don't think money should be part of this." Then he murmured something I'll never forget. "You might want to reconsider," he said, eyes glued to his phone. "I mean, I have those pics you sent. Would be a shame if they ended up somewhere." I froze. I had sent him a few flirty photos. Nothing explicit, but enough to be compromising. My heart dropped into my stomach. "You're joking," I said, trying to play it off. He smirked. "I don't joke about this kind of thing." My instincts screamed. I grabbed my bag. "I think I should go." His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, not hard but firm. "Don't be dramatic," he said. "We're just talking." I yanked my arm free and walked out, refusing to look back. I didn't run, didn't cry, but my hands shook as I got into my car. A message popped up as I pulled away. "Think about it, Claire. You don't want to make me your enemy." That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside my window felt like a threat. I kept checking my phone, dreading the next message. By morning, I knew I had to tell someone. I called my best friend, Elise, and told her everything. She was furious. "We need to find him. Look him up. Socials, background, anything." But we found nothing. His Tinder profile? Deleted. The number he used? Linked to a burner ad on Craigslist. No Instagram. No Facebook. Even the last name he gave me turned up blank. That's when the panic truly set in. I went to the police. They listened, but the response was tepid. "Unless he attempts to extort you or threatens physical harm, there's not much we can do," the officer said. I showed them the texts. They sympathized but said to block him. If it escalated, then they'd act. That night, I got another message. "Bad move, Claire. Now I have to teach you a lesson." Attached was one of the photos I sent, along with a list of email addresses, my manager, colleagues, even a faculty member from a volunteer group I worked with. Then another message. $500 by tomorrow, or they all get this. I broke down. Elise stayed on the phone with me, talking me out of paying. "If you pay him, it'll never stop. We fight." I gathered everything, screenshots, messages, the fake profile, everything. I went back to the police. This time, they took it seriously. They traced the email address to a burner phone, then cross-referenced patterns. Turns out Alex was actually Daniel H., a man who had been doing this to women across several states. He had dozens of identities, a digital ghost with countless victims. Some had paid. Some had lost their jobs. One woman had her photos sent to her entire family. They arrested him in a sting. In his apartment, they found over a dozen phones, stacks of IDs, and folders of screenshots and pictures, hundreds of them. I should have felt relieved. But some of my photos had already been leaked. Not all, but enough. I had to sit down with my manager, explain what happened, try to salvage my reputation. He made bail. I moved out of my apartment, changed my number, deleted everything tied to my name. But even now, months later, I still double-check every lock. I feel eyes on me when I walk alone. I keep wondering how close he got to doing worse. And how many more like him are still out there, smiling, swiping, waiting. I survived. But just barely. I'm Elise. I live just outside Boulder, Colorado, in a quiet suburb that backs up into the foothills. It's peaceful, predictable. Until a few months ago, that's all I wanted: routine, simplicity, nothing dramatic. But then I met Adrian. We matched on Tinder late one night when I couldn't sleep. His profile was different. No shirtless mirror selfies, no obnoxious bio about being just here for fun. Instead, his profile said, "In search of clarity, connection, and people who remember how to look up at the sky." I know, it sounds pretentious. But it intrigued me. His pictures weren't overly posed either. A photo of him reading under a tree, one of him at a waterfall, and another with a worn-looking dog that I instantly fell in love with. We started chatting that night and never really stopped. He was articulate. He used words like liminal and transcendence, but not in a condescending way. He talked about the world like he had broken out of the box we're all stuck in. After a few days, I felt like I knew him, or at least wanted to. About a week in, he invited me to a party. "It's not a wild rager," he said. "Just some friends. Think of it more like a gathering." Something about the way he said gathering made me pause. But curiosity won. The house was deep in the woods outside Nederland, remote, quiet, surrounded by tall pines and mist. It looked like a vacation rental. There were about 15 people inside when I arrived. Not a single one was on their phone. Everyone was so warm. Too warm. They smiled like they knew me. One woman even hugged me and whispered, "We've been waiting for you." I laughed nervously. "Well, I hope I'm not late." Adrian introduced me around. There was Marcus, intense eyes, soothing voice, the kind of guy who speaks slowly so everyone has to listen. There was Ivy, who looked like she stepped out of a Renaissance painting and held my hand for just a beat too long. Then there was Naomi, silent most of the time, but always nearby. The party wasn't really a party. It was quiet, solemn almost. No alcohol. Just herbal tea that tasted earthy and bitter. The conversations weren't surface level either. No one talked about jobs or movies or the weather. They asked questions like, "When did you first question the world? Do you think time is linear? What's the one thing you're still holding on to that's keeping you from waking up?" I left feeling like I'd been hypnotized. On the drive home, I kept checking the rearview mirror. Not because I thought anyone was following me, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left a piece of myself behind. A few days later, Adrian messaged me again. "There's another gathering this weekend. This one's more private. No distractions. Just us and the truth." I knew I shouldn't go. My gut was screaming. But another part of me wanted to see what would happen. I told myself I could leave anytime I wanted. I drove out on a Saturday evening to a remote lodge in the forest, farther than before. My phone signal vanished 20 minutes before I arrived. The place was candlelit and quiet. When I stepped inside, the group was already seated in a circle on the floor, murmuring softly. The second I entered, they all looked up. Their smiles felt choreographed. "Elise," Marcus said. "Come. Sit." There was no question in his voice. Just certainty. Adrian stood and guided me to the center of the circle, like I was a bride being walked down the aisle. I sat, heart pounding. The group started chanting, low, melodic, rhythmic. The air felt thick, heavy. I couldn't breathe right. Someone pressed something into my hand. A smooth stone, warm, with strange carvings. "You're at the threshold," Marcus said. "You don't have to walk through. But once you see the door, pretending it's not there becomes a choice." Adrian leaned close, lips brushing my ear. "Just repeat after me." I looked around. The candles flickered wildly, though there was no wind. The faces in the circle had changed. They weren't smiling anymore. They were watching me, hungry. "I'm not ready," I whispered. The chanting stopped. Silence fell like a hammer. "That's okay," Ivy said softly. "But the door only opens once." "No one is forced," Marcus added. "But to walk away is to stay blind. And we can't protect you once you leave." I stood up. My legs were shaking. "I need to go." Adrian's face twitched. Not anger. Disappointment. He didn't follow me, but as I reached the door, I felt the weight of every gaze burrowing into my spine. I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing those eyes in the dark, hearing the chant in my head like a broken lullaby. I tried texting Adrian the next day. That was too intense. I don't think I want to be part of this. He didn't reply. Then the messages started. From numbers I didn't recognize. We felt something in you. It's rare. Don't turn away. Leaving doesn't make you safe. It just makes you alone. You've seen the truth. It's too late to pretend. I blocked them. More came. Some left voicemails, soft whispers chanting, sometimes just the sound of wind. Once, someone left a voicemail humming a lullaby I hadn't heard since childhood. A lullaby my mother used to sing. I started to see people I recognized from the gatherings, outside my job, near my apartment, in grocery store aisles. They never approached. Just watched. One night, there was a knock on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. It was Adrian. I didn't open it. Elise, he called softly. You're not in danger. Not from us. But others, they won't protect you. I stood there, breath shallow, until he left. But then Naomi showed up at my parents' house. My mom called, panicked. A girl was here asking about you. Said you owed her something? She wouldn't give a last name. That's when I knew it wasn't just me at risk. I went to the police. They were polite but uninterested. They haven't done anything illegal, the officer said. No threats, no violence. But they're following me. They're harassing me. Unless they trespass or physically harm you, it's not actionable. I left in tears. That night, I heard tapping on my bedroom window. I live on the second floor. I opened the curtain slowly. Naomi stood outside on the fire escape, smiling. I screamed. She didn't flinch. She just placed her hand on the glass and mouthed something. It looked like, come back. I didn't sleep. The next day, I packed a bag, told my work I needed time off, and disappeared. I changed my number, deleted my social media, moved in with a friend across the state. I told no one. For a few weeks, it was quiet. I started to breathe again. Then one morning, I got a call from a blocked number. I answered, heart pounding. Still trying to sleep, Elise? It was Marcus. You chose blindness, he said. But even blind, the door finds you. He hung up. That evening, my friend's dog wouldn't stop barking at the back door. I looked outside and saw nothing. But when I checked again an hour later, a smooth stone sat on the doorstep. The same kind they gave me in the circle. It had my name carved into it. They never stopped watching. I left the state eventually. New job. New name. But some nights, I still hear the chant, echoing in my dreams. Dating apps are exhausting. Swipe left, swipe right, 99% of the time it's a waste of time or worse, mildly traumatic. But then there was Lucas. His profile didn't scream attention seeker. No shirtless gym pics, no fishing trophies. He looked clean-cut, had kind eyes, and a half-smile like he didn't care whether or not you thought he was hot. That's what drew me in. We matched on a Tuesday. He was quick-witted, polite, a little sarcastic but never mean. Our conversation flowed. Within hours, I found myself actually laughing out loud at something he said. I was cautious, though. I always am. But Lucas? He didn't push. Didn't ask for pictures. Didn't rush to meet up. Just chatted. Easy. Steady. By Friday, he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee downtown. Somewhere public. Just a short one. No pressure, he said. And he meant it. When I arrived at the cafe, he was already there reading. He stood up when I walked in, smiled, and didn't go in for an awkward hug or anything. We talked for an hour about books, documentaries, travel stories. Nothing felt forced. When it was over, he didn't even try to kiss me. Just asked if I wanted to meet again. I said yes. The second date was a week later. Dinner at a trendy but low-key Thai place. He was the same as before, charming, engaged, funny. I liked him more than I expected to. After we ate, he offered to drop me off at my place. I left something at my apartment, he added casually. It's on the way. Mind if we swing by for a second? I hesitated, but he had been nothing but respectful. I nodded. His place was in an older building tucked into a quieter neighborhood. One of those older apartment blocks with heavy wooden doors and creaky hallways. The second I stepped inside, though, something shifted. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The space was too clean, not in a tidy way, but sterile. Like no one actually lived there. No photos. No books. No mess. No warmth. Then I saw the shoes. A pair of women's flats, delicate and pale blue, neatly placed by the front door. They were clean but scuffed around the toes. Like someone had taken them off in a hurry, and never came back for them. Before I could ask, a girl stepped into the hallway. She was petite, maybe my age, with dark circles under her eyes. Her gaze flicked to me, then to Lucas. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was about to say something. Then Lucas moved. He stepped between us so smoothly, it was like choreography. "Don't mind her," he said lightly. "She's just crashing here for a bit. It's complicated." The girl didn't move. She stood perfectly still, her hands trembling slightly. Her eyes met mine, and something in my gut dropped. "Get out, get out, get out." "I think I should go," I said, keeping my tone light. Lucas turned to me, smiling too wide. "There's no rush." My heart pounded. I looked back at the girl. She shook her head slowly, almost imperceptibly, lips pressed tight. I stepped toward the door. Lucas blocked the way. He didn't touch me. Not yet. Just stood there, still smiling. "Where's the fire?" he asked. I felt it then, that shift. Like the air had dropped 10 degrees. The warmth in his face melted into something colder. A mask slipping. I forced a laugh. "Seriously, I have an early morning." "Rain check." He didn't move. "We just got here." Then another man stepped out from the hallway. I hadn't seen him before. Stockier than Lucas. Shaved head. Blank eyes. He didn't speak. Just stood behind the girl. She flinched. I tried again. "Lucas, let me go. Now." He didn't reply. Instead, he reached for my wrist, gently like it was no big deal, but his grip was firm. "Don't make a scene," he said. That's when instinct kicked in. I yanked my arm back, fast and hard, and drove my elbow into his side. He grunted, surprised. His grip loosened. I ran. Bolted for the door, heart hammering, legs shaking. Behind me, I heard a scuffle, a noise like something knocked over. Feet pounding on the hardwood. I hit the hallway and kept running, down the narrow stairs 2 at a time, lungs burning. My purse bounced off my hip with every step. I didn't look back. Didn't slow down. When I reached the front entrance, I yanked the door open and almost slammed into a couple walking by. "Help me!" I gasped, breathless. The man grabbed my arm instinctively, steadying me. "What happened?" I turned. The door behind me was shut. Silent. No Lucas. No man. No girl. I tried to explain, but my voice kept cracking. My whole body was shaking, adrenaline turning my limbs to jelly. The couple helped me call the police. They searched the apartment within the hour. But it was empty. Bare. No furniture except a mattress on the floor. A few takeout containers. Some rope. No Lucas. No other guy. No girl. Gone. Like they had never been there at all. But they had been. I filed a report. Described everything. The police listened, took notes. They asked if I knew his last name. I didn't. The number he gave me was disconnected by the next day. But the police found something worse. A shoebox hidden under the mattress. Inside were 7 women's IDs. None of them were mine. They released some photos of the men based on my description, linking them to missing persons cases from Arizona, Nevada, and Oregon. The faces didn't match any databases. No fingerprints. No names. Just shadows. I never used a dating app again. But the worst part, a month after the incident, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a pair of pale blue shoes. The same shoes I'd seen by Lucas's door. Except this time, there was a note tucked inside. "Thanks for running. You made it fun." I'm not new to dating apps. I've been on and off them for years. Mostly bad dates, a few awkward ones, and a couple of flings. Nothing special. Nothing lasting. So when I matched with Eli, I didn't expect much. His profile was normal in the best way. Simple bio, no shirtless photos, clean haircut, jeans and a t-shirt, warm smile. He was from the city, worked in IT, liked coffee, indie films, and paddleboarding. His messages were polite, even a little shy at first. He didn't push. He remembered things I said. It was refreshing. After 3 days of chatting, he asked me out. Dinner. A nice little restaurant downtown. Casual. Comfortable. The night went well. He was exactly like his messages. Thoughtful, funny, easy to talk to. He asked about my work, my dog, the cities I wanted to travel to. When I realized I'd forgotten my wallet, I was mortified, but Eli just smiled and waved it off. "No big deal. It's just dinner," he said. When we left, he offered me a ride home. "Swear I'm not a serial killer," he joked, and I laughed. It didn't feel weird. He had been a perfect gentleman all night. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Eli standing there with a bouquet of tulips, my favorite. "I just wanted to surprise you," he said. "You mentioned these were your favorite, remember?" I forced a smile and took the flowers. It was sweet, but also a little much. We'd had one date. One. Still, I chalked it up to eagerness. I thanked him, made an excuse about running late, and he left. Then it started happening more. I spotted him across the street from my office a few days later. He was sitting at a sidewalk cafe, sipping coffee and staring straight at me. When I walked outside, he stood and waved like it was fate. "Fancy seeing you here," he said. I forced a smile, made small talk, and hurried back inside. That weekend, I went out with friends. As I left the bar around midnight, I saw him again, leaning against a light post outside. "Naomi," he called out. "Small world, huh?" That's when my stomach turned. San Diego's a big city. These weren't coincidences. I stopped replying to his texts. That's when the messages changed. "Saw you at the grocery store today. Looking good in that sundress. You should smile more when you walk to the bus. People notice." I hadn't seen him, but he'd seen me. One night, I got off the bus and walked the 5 blocks home like usual. The streets were quiet, but I had that feeling. You know the one. Eyes on your back, footsteps that sync just a second too closely with yours. I glanced behind me. There he was, a few paces behind, hood up, hands in his jacket. I picked up my pace. So did he. When I reached my apartment building, I didn't hesitate. I sprinted up the steps, shoved my key into the lock, and slammed the door behind me. Through the peephole, I saw him standing on the sidewalk, staring. He didn't knock. He didn't leave. He just watched. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I went to the police. I brought screenshots of the texts. I explained the following, the coincidences, the flowers, the watching. The officer flipped through my printouts with the enthusiasm of a DMV clerk. "Has he threatened you?" "No, but..." "Physically harmed you?" "No." "Well, unless there's a direct threat or trespassing, there's not much we can do. It's uncomfortable, sure, but not illegal." I left the station feeling invisible, like a ghost telling a story no one believed. So I texted Eli. Short. Firm. "Please stop contacting me. I'm uncomfortable. Don't show up at my home or work. Respect my space." He read it instantly. Typing bubble. Then nothing. No response. For a few days, I saw no sign of him. No texts. No chance run-ins. I let myself breathe again. Maybe it was over. Then I came home to a box on my doorstep, wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address. Inside, a silver heart-shaped necklace. Delicate. Pretty. Almost childish. And beneath it, a note. "You forgot this. I never owned a necklace like that." I moved 2 weeks later. Broke my lease, packed up everything I could carry, and left. New apartment across the city. New number. New routine. For a while it worked. Then one night, walking to my car after a late shift, I heard fast, purposeful footsteps behind me. I turned. Eli. He didn't speak at first. Just stared. "How did you find me?" I asked, voice trembling. He stepped closer. "Why did you leave?" His voice wasn't angry. Just confused. Sad even. "You need to leave," I said, backing away. He took another step. "You don't understand. You're supposed to be with me." Then he reached into his jacket. Flash of metal. A knife. I screamed, aloud and raw. A door opened nearby. My neighbor, an older guy, broad-shouldered, burst out, holding a baseball bat. "What the hell is going on out here?" Eli froze. Just for a second. Then bolted. The police took it seriously this time. I got a restraining order. They started searching. But he was gone again. Like before. No trace. I packed everything I had and left the city entirely. That was 3 years ago. I live in another state now. I don't post online. I don't use dating apps. I check over my shoulder in parking lots. I never take the same route home twice. I've changed everything. But some nights, when the wind hits the windows just right, when the streetlights flicker, I still see him. Waiting. Watching. And I wonder if one day, I'll come home to another box. With another note. Telling me I forgot something. His name was Miles. His profile was simple. Well-lit photos, nothing overdone. Clean-shaven, button-down shirt, a smile that looked real. No red flags. No vibe of trying too hard. His bio said, creative in a corporate world. Whiskey lover. Looking for something grounded. I'm not naive, but I'm not cynical either. I wasn't looking for forever, but I wasn't looking to be toyed with. Miles was respectful in messages. No pressure, no weird compliments, no sexual overtones. We talked for nearly 2 weeks before we met in person. He picked the bar, somewhere downtown I'd been before. Familiar. Crowded, but not too loud. I felt safe there. When I arrived, he was already seated at a high-top table near the bar, nursing a drink and waving with a smile. Same guy from the photos. Tall, dark hair, solid posture, clean but casual. My nerves eased instantly. We started with small talk, jobs, hobbies, favorite takeout. I work in HR and joked about how I'm paid to babysit grown adults. He laughed in all the right places, asked follow-up questions, and told me he worked in digital marketing for a startup. Vague but believable. He ordered drinks. Whiskey sours. I usually go for vodka, I said. It's a Friday night, he replied, smiling. Try something new. The first sip was strong, but not unpleasant. We kept chatting. He was good at keeping the conversation flowing. Charismatic without being cocky. When I was halfway through, he ordered another round without asking. That should have been my first red flag. I hesitated when the second drink came. He raised his glass. To a good start, he said. I took a sip. Just one. 15 minutes later, my head started swimming. At first, I thought it was just the strength of the whiskey. But it felt wrong. My arms felt heavy. My vision blurred at the edges. I blinked hard, trying to focus. Words started to slip away the moment they entered my mind. My body didn't feel drunk. It felt hijacked. I think I need some water, I mumbled, tongue thick in my mouth. Miles stood up. You okay? I nodded, but I wasn't. Not even close. We should get you home, he said. I remember flashes. The cold air on my face as we stepped outside. His arm around me, guiding me somewhere. The car door shutting. The world skipping like a scratched record. Then darkness. I woke up on a couch in a strange apartment. It was dark. My head throbbed. My mouth was dry. My arms didn't feel like mine. I tried to sit up, but my body barely responded. I blinked at the shadows. The blinds were closed, but a street lamp leaked faint orange light across the floor. I was still wearing my clothes. My shoes were gone. My bag gone. I tried to stand. My legs shook. My muscles screamed. I couldn't find my phone. That's when I heard footsteps. Miles appeared in the doorway, bathed in the pale light from the hall. He smiled like nothing was wrong. Hey, feeling better? My heart pounded in my chest. Where am I? My voice cracked like brittle glass. My place, he said. You passed out at the bar. I didn't want to leave you there. Figured I'd help you out. Take me home. He tilted his head, like I was being unreasonable. Relax. You just need to sleep it off. I scanned the room. One door. No shoes. No bag. No phone. What did you put in my drink? He shrugged. Nothing you haven't had before. I forced myself to stand, gripping the couch for balance. My vision swam. Where's my phone? I didn't see one, he said. Liar. I looked around again. There was only one possible exit, behind him. I forced my legs forward. He stepped into my path. Don't be dramatic, he said. No one's hurt. You just need rest. I need the bathroom, I said, voice sharper than I thought possible in my condition. He pointed down the hallway. First door. I walked slowly, feeling every part of my body buzz with distorted fear. I shut the bathroom door behind me and locked it, turned on the sink to mask sound. My reflection in the mirror made my blood run cold, dilated pupils, pale face, sweat on my neck. Then I saw it. His phone. Sitting on the counter. Screen down. I picked it up. Locked. But I didn't need full access. I held the power and volume button until it lit up the emergency screen. Emergency call. I dialed 911. My voice shook so badly I could barely speak. I've been drugged, I whispered. I don't know where I am. I think he's going to hurt me. Footsteps outside the door. Knocking. Loud. You okay in there? I didn't answer. Miss, can you describe where you are? The dispatcher asked. I'm in Austin. His name is Miles. I met him on a dating app. He drugged me. Please hurry. Miles who? I don't know his last name. The doorknob twisted. Locked. Christ, open the door. Miles barked. You're making a scene. Miss, stay calm. We've traced your phone location. Help is on the way. I didn't speak. Just clutched the phone, staring at the door, trying not to cry. Then pounding. From outside the apartment. Police. Open up. Silence. I heard Miles retreat, footsteps moving fast. Then voices, shouting, crashing, the thump of a body hitting the ground. They found me minutes later. Shaking, barely coherent, clutching a stranger's phone in a locked bathroom. Miles was arrested. They found multiple phones, fake IDs, photos, not just of me. There were other women. And worse, they found drugs, hidden in vitamins, mixed into powders, disguised in prescription bottles. He'd done this before. More than once. Some women had never come forward. Some couldn't. I testified 6 months later. He wore a blue button-down shirt and smiled like we were old friends. His lawyer said I had overindulged. That Miles had acted out of concern. The toxicology reports told another story. So did the other women who came forward. He was sentenced to 18 years. But that wasn't the end. Even now, I can't take drinks from strangers. I can't sit in dim bars without seeing his face. I can't sleep some nights without checking the lock twice. 3 times. I survived. That's what people say. But survival doesn't mean it didn't break something. Because in that dark apartment, sitting on that couch with my phone gone and my shoes missing, I wasn't Sierra anymore. I was a thing. An opportunity. And that changes you. Forever. There's this moment in every good horror movie where the main character knows something is wrong, but they tell themselves it's fine. They explain away the red flag. They rationalize the feeling. That was me. His name was Aiden. We met on Tinder during one of those Sunday night loneliness spirals. He was attractive, clean-cut, wore glasses, had a dog in one photo, and his smile didn't look rehearsed. His bio read, "Looking for something real. If you like bookstores, bonfires, or bad horror movies, swipe right." I swiped right. We started talking that night. He was funny. Not in a stand-up comedian way, just quick, clever, dry. He complimented me without being gross. And he never once tried to turn the conversation flirty or sexual. He made me feel interesting, not just clickable. He sent good morning texts. Told me I had old soul energy. That I seemed genuine in a world built on filters. It felt nice. Like maybe this one was different. He wanted something serious, he said. He brought me coffee at work once, left a book in my mailbox with a sticky note that said, "This reminded me of you." After years of half-effort men and ghosted goodnights, this felt like the beginning of something real. There was only one weird thing. We never went to his place. Not once. We always met at my apartment or out somewhere, parks, bars, restaurants. When I joked about it once, "What, is your place haunted?" He laughed and said, "Honestly, it's a disaster. I'm too embarrassed." I let it go. You can justify anything when you want to believe the good. One night, we were at dinner. He went to the restroom, and his phone lit up on the table. I wasn't snooping, I swear I wasn't. But the name on the message caught my eye. "Don't forget about Lila." The text was short. No context. But my brain latched onto it. Lila? A friend? A sister? When he came back, he saw me glancing at the screen and immediately flipped the phone over. Too fast. Too defensive. "Who's Lila?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Work thing," he said. "You know how it is." Except I didn't. Aiden worked in marketing, and I couldn't imagine any version of that job where "don't forget about Lila" made sense. Something twisted in my gut. I couldn't explain it, but it didn't let go. That night, lying awake, I did something I'd never done before with someone I was dating. I Googled his name alongside the word missing. I didn't expect to find anything. But I did. Lila Granger. Missing. Last seen 3 weeks ago after leaving a bar. No suspects. No foul play confirmed. Just gone. My stomach dropped. I clicked through her photos. She was my age. Normal. Happy. Her last social post had comments filled with heart emojis and desperate prayers. I kept digging. Another name, Sarah Miles. Missing 3 months ago. And then, Nina Rosario. Disappeared 5 months ago. I searched their profiles. My heart froze. On Sarah's old photo from 6 months ago, buried in the comments, was one from Aiden's profile. Looking great. Winking face. Same with Nina. Same damn emoji. The next time I saw him, I tried to act normal. Smiling. Laughing. Pretending I didn't know what I knew. Then, like I was testing something, I said, "Hey, weird question. Did you know Sarah Miles? She went missing like a few months ago." He didn't blink. Doesn't ring a bell. That's awful though. His tone was off. Like he was reading a script. That's when the fear really started. I told him I needed space. Sent a long text saying I wasn't in the right headspace for something serious. He replied quickly, "If that's what you want." Short. Cold. The warmth was gone. I blocked his number. Deleted our messages. Changed my locks. I thought it was over. 2 nights later, I saw his car parked across the street from my apartment. Not moving. Just sitting there. I didn't call the police. What would I even say? That a man was parked legally, but made me uncomfortable? I waited, lights off, barely breathing, until he drove away. A week passed. Then the parking garage incident. It was late. I'd stayed late at work, and the building was nearly empty. My heels clicked loudly on the concrete. Every echo was louder than it should have been. Halfway to my car, I heard footsteps. I turned. No one. I kept walking, faster now. Another sound. Then, from behind one of the pillars, a figure stepped out. It was him. Aiden. He didn't look surprised. I just want to talk, he said, voice calm. Measured. I backed away. You need to leave. Now. You're making a mistake, he said. You think you know something, but you don't. He stepped forward. I bolted. Ran past him, keys already in my hand, ready to stab if I had to. I reached my car, locked the door, and peeled out of the garage without looking back. I went to the police. They were polite. Sympathetic. But not helpful. No direct threats, they said. No proof he's connected to the missing girls. I saw him outside my place. He followed me. Do you have footage? Photos? I didn't. So they filed a report and told me to keep an eye out. A month later, another woman went missing. Haley Brenner. 27, last seen near the Beltline. Her social media was still active. I looked. He'd liked her last post. My hands went cold. I packed a suitcase that night and left. Didn't tell anyone but my parents. Quit my job. Found a sublease 4 cities away. New number. Knew everything. I don't post online. I don't swipe. I don't date. But every now and then, I check the news from Atlanta. More women. More disappearances. No suspect. No arrests. And sometimes, when I can't sleep, I check their social media. Just to see. And every so often, there's a familiar name in the likes. Aiden. Same face. Same glasses. Same smile that doesn't look rehearsed. I don't know how many women he's hurt. I don't know who he really is. I used to think I had a good radar for people. I'm not overly trusting. I don't fall fast. I'm careful. Especially in a city like Chicago, where the wrong kind of stranger is only ever a block away. But the truth is, when it comes to dating apps, none of that matters. Because you never know what someone's capable of until it's too late. His name was Nathan. We matched on a quiet Friday night. I was drinking tea, wrapped in a blanket, bored out of my mind. His profile looked so normal it was boring. Jeans, t-shirt, standing in front of Lake Michigan. His bio was plain. Looking for something real. Tired of games. That line usually makes me roll my eyes. But I swiped right. Our conversation was easy. He asked good questions. Said he worked in finance, but hated the corporate world. He was always the first to say good morning. Remembered tiny things I mentioned in passing. Sent memes that actually made me laugh. The effort felt real. Rare. After 2 weeks, he started bringing me coffee. He remembered my order, oat milk, no sugar, extra hot. When I had a rough day, he left a bag of sour candy at my door with a note. For when life sucks but sugar helps. I melted. Of course I did. We started seeing each other regularly. He never pushed anything physical. Always polite, always patient. Too patient, maybe. But I was so used to men who rushed everything, I didn't think much of it. And yet, he never invited me to his place. We were always at mine or out. I brought it up once, joking. What, are you hiding a secret family or a pet tiger? He laughed. Said his apartment was tiny, and he was embarrassed. It's more like a closet than a living space. That made sense in a city like this. Small apartments. Shared laundry. No privacy. I let it go. Until one night, we were watching a movie, and his phone buzzed. He was in the kitchen. The screen lit up. Just for a second. Did you get rid of the stuff from Madeline yet? When he came back, I asked who Madeline was. He paused. A fraction too long. Then smiled. Old coworker. Total flake. Long story. He turned his phone over, screen down. I laughed it off. But that night, when he left, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Something about that message. Get rid of the stuff. What stuff? I stayed up Googling. I typed in Madeline missing Chicago. I found it on the second try. Madeline Wyatt. 29. Last seen 2 months ago. Reported missing by a friend after failing to show up for a weekend trip. No leads. Last known location, her apartment. My skin went cold. She looked like me. Brown hair. Soft features. Lived only a few blocks away. I didn't want to believe it, so I dug deeper. Over the next few hours, I found 3 more women. Hannah Rivera, Tasha Lynn, Joelle Marks. All from Chicago. All around my age. All missing. And the one thing they had in common? A Tinder profile liked by a guy named Nathan. Same photos. Same bio. Same stupid smile. I couldn't sleep. I thought about confronting him. But what would I say? Hey, are you secretly murdering women you meet online? That wouldn't go over well. So I lied. I told him I had to go out of town for work. Family emergency. Something to stall him. To buy me time. He texted constantly while I was away. I miss you. Let me know when you're home. Don't go dark on me. His tone got strange. Possessive. When I finally texted him that I needed space, he sent one reply. That's disappointing. Then silence. But the next day, I saw his reflection in the window of my building's entrance. He was across the street, pretending to scroll through his phone. Watching. I didn't go inside. I walked to a cafe, heart hammering, fingers shaking. I waited 2 hours before returning. He was gone. But then the packages started showing up. First, a small gift box on my doorstep. Inside, a used tube of lipstick. No note. Second, a manila envelope. No return address. Inside, 5 photos of me. Walking home from work. At the corner store. In my pajamas by the window. All recent. The third package was the worst. A folded sheet of paper. No pictures. No writing. Just a house key. Not mine. I went to the police. They took it more seriously this time. A detective sat me down, took photos, recorded the statement. But Nathan had vanished. The phone number disconnected. The Tinder profile deleted. No social media. He was smoke. A week later, a neighbor knocked on my door. He looked shaken. Hey, did you see the news? He showed me a headline on his phone. Body found in abandoned apartment. Police investigate connection to missing women. I clicked the article. It was Nathan's building. He did have an apartment. Police found blood traces. Zip ties. Photos. Journals. One entry read, I think Ivy knows. That night, I packed everything and left the city. No forwarding address. No social accounts. I even dyed my hair. I had to disappear before he made me do it for real. Sometimes I still wake up thinking I hear someone in the hallway. I keep my bedroom window locked, even when it's sweltering. I check under the bed. I check the closet. Because men like Nathan don't just vanish. They wait. They change names. They swipe again. And somewhere out there, I know he's starting over, with someone new. Someone who thinks he's sweet. Someone who hasn't read the note he'll one day leave on her pillow. I think you know. I met Sebastian on a dating app that I downloaded one lonely Sunday evening while living in Edinburgh. I'd only been in the city for 6 months, freshly relocated from Toronto for a publishing job, and hadn't made many friends yet. Most of my weekends were spent in bookshops or museums, telling myself I liked the quiet, even when the silence made my ears ring. Sebastian's profile was the first one that didn't make me roll my eyes. He had that kind of offbeat charm that didn't scream, trying too hard. His photos weren't just gym selfies or blurry group shots at a bar. One was of him crouched beside a street artist in Barcelona. Another was him walking through a foggy forest with a camera slung over his shoulder. His bio was strange but intriguing. I listened to the sky. Empath. Vibe reader. If you're emotionally constipated, swipe left. I chuckled and swiped right. He messaged me an hour later. Our conversation was weird, but in a good way. He didn't ask the usual "what do you do?" questions. Instead, he asked things like, when was the last time a dream made you feel more alive than real life? And what emotion do you think people hide the most? Some part of me found it refreshing. Sebastian had this gentle, poetic way of speaking, like a wandering monk with a Spotify account. After a few days of exchanging messages, he asked if I wanted to meet up. We chose a quiet cafe near the water of Leith. I arrived a few minutes early, watching the river pass lazily beneath the bridge outside. When Sebastian walked in, he didn't look quite how I'd expected, taller Messier, in a threadbare wool coat that smelled faintly of incense. His dark eyes met mine, and he smiled in a way that made me feel like he already knew me. "You're green," he said, sitting across from me. I blinked. "Sorry?" "Your energy. Very green. Calm but growing. Like ivy on old stone." I laughed, partly confused, partly charmed. It was weird, sure, but not dangerous weird. Just Sebastian being Sebastian. Our first date lasted 5 hours. We walked through Dean Village talking about music, magic, grief, and strange childhood memories. He claimed to feel people's pain like a physical weight, and said that the world was more enchanted than most people noticed. By the time we said goodbye, I wasn't sure if I wanted to date him or write a novel about him. 2 days later, he invited me over for dinner at his flat near Blackford Hill. I hesitated. I didn't usually go to someone's place that early, but Sebastian wasn't giving off red flag energy. He was more earthy mystic than pushy creep. His apartment was what I expected. Dim lighting, crystals everywhere, books stacked precariously in corners. The air smelled like burning sage and something else I couldn't quite place, cloves maybe. The dinner was simple, lentil soup and homemade bread. As we ate, he told me he'd been having dreams about me for weeks before we matched. I don't mean to sound intense, he said, but I think we were supposed to meet. I've felt your energy before. In another life, maybe. Again, weird, but not runaway screaming weird. At the end of the night, we sat cross-legged on the floor, sipping tea. That's when he handed me a box. It was small, wooden, and lined with soft red velvet. An antique clasp held it shut. It's for you, he said. I smiled, caught off guard. You got me something? Sebastian nodded. Something very personal. I opened it, and stopped breathing. Inside the box was a lock of hair, fine chestnut brown, exactly my shade. It was tied neatly with a thin black ribbon. I stared at it, frozen. I found this, he said gently, after our first date. It was caught in the collar of your coat. You left a part of yourself with me. I couldn't ignore that. I couldn't speak. He took my silence as wonder. It's symbolic, he continued. The universe gives us signs. Physical fragments. I keep them safe. My mind was racing. I hadn't been to his flat before. How the hell could he have gotten that? You said it was in my coat? I asked carefully. Sebastian smiled. Well, not exactly. I came by your building the night after we met. I just felt pulled there. I saw your coat hanging by the window, and I knew it was yours. The wind shifted, and it fluttered. That's when I saw the hair. You were outside my flat? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded calm. I was drawn to it. To you. But don't worry, I didn't come up or anything. That would have been intrusive. I closed the box and set it down slowly. Sebastian, I said. That's not okay. He tilted his head, genuinely confused. Why not? You went to my home, without telling me, and now you're giving me my own hair? That's not normal. But energy is real, he said, and hair holds memory. I wanted to preserve the moment. This connection. I stood up. He didn't. You're afraid, he said softly. Most people are when they're faced with truth. But I'm not a threat. I just see things others don't. I think I should go, I said. Please don't, he said. You'll understand. I can show you. I didn't wait to find out what he meant. I left. Fast. For the next week, he didn't text. I thought maybe he got the message. Then the letters started. The first was left on my doormat, a folded piece of parchment with pressed lavender. It said, I still feel you in the air. The second arrived in my mailbox, no stamp. You're still green. But there's shadow now. Then came the photos. Images of me walking alone near the Royal Botanic Garden. Another of me looking out my window, holding a mug. My heart dropped. These weren't public posts or old selfies. These were real-time. Recent. Taken without my knowledge. The final letter chilled me to the core. It was tucked into the same wooden box, which had somehow found its way inside my flat. Inside the box, the lock of hair, now braided. Under it, a note. You left a piece of yourself with me. But I need more. You'll understand when your shadow softens. The connection can't be severed now. Not anymore. I moved. I reported him, though the police said there wasn't much they could do without concrete threats. I scrubbed my online presence. Changed my number. But the worst part isn't what he did. It's what I still feel, that weird, creeping sense that he was always 2 steps ahead. That maybe he wasn't entirely wrong when he said we had been connected in a past life. Because sometimes, when the light hits the mirror in my new flat a certain way, I swear I see him standing behind me. Not in reflection, but in memory. I was born and raised in a small town in Ontario, but moved to Vancouver about a year ago, hoping to start over after a messy breakup. I had convinced myself I wasn't ready to date again, but loneliness has a way of making you reconsider your principles. So I re-downloaded the apps again. After a string of bland conversations and a few ghostings, I started to think online dating just wasn't for me. Every guy I talked to felt like a carbon copy of the last, too eager, too shallow, too much. The endless small talk made me feel like I was participating in some simulation of intimacy, rather than actually connecting with someone. That's when I matched with Eli. His profile didn't stand out in any flashy way. No shirtless gym selfies, no group pics where you had to play Where's Waldo to figure out who he was. Just a few quiet, unassuming shots. One of him sitting by a window with a cup of tea, another in a bookstore, and one black and white photo of him walking through Stanley Park. His bio was short but intriguing. Architect. Collector of moments. Sometimes I design spaces, sometimes I just exist in them. We started chatting, and right away I noticed something different. Eli wasn't trying too hard to impress me. His messages weren't full of cheesy lines or cryptic one-liners. Instead, he asked simple questions: how my day was going, what I was reading, what music I had on repeat that week. He seemed real. For 2 weeks we exchanged messages every day. He was warm, thoughtful, and surprisingly intuitive. When I mentioned I was having a rough day, he didn't send me some generic, "You got this," response. He asked if I wanted to talk about it, and actually listened when I did. Eventually, he asked if I'd like to meet for drinks. He suggested a place I'd never been before, the Marrow, a cozy wine bar tucked into an older part of Easton Hill, just outside downtown. I was nervous but curious. I agreed. When I arrived, Eli was already there, sitting at a booth in the corner like he'd always belonged there. He stood as I approached, and immediately I thought he looked even better in person. Tall, lean, soft-spoken. His presence was calming, like an anchor. We hugged, slightly awkward, but not in a bad way. Just two people still testing the water. The conversation flowed easily. We talked about books, travel, and how strange it felt to try and connect in such curated ways through dating apps. He laughed softly when I mentioned that, agreeing that it often felt like trying to fall in love through a resume. Hours passed. We lost track of time. Eventually, he offered to walk me home, but I mentioned I had driven. Instead, he invited me to continue the night with a glass of wine at his apartment, just a few blocks away. It was impulsive, but I didn't feel unsafe. Eli didn't set off any alarms. His apartment was surprising. I expected a sleek bachelor pad or maybe a minimalist modern loft, but instead, it was cozy and lived in, like something from a different era. There were stacks of books along the walls, a turntable spinning quiet jazz in the corner, and dozens of small, eclectic objects decorating the shelves: figurines, postcards, feathers in glass jars. Everything felt deliberate, curated, almost sacred. But what caught my attention most was the art. His walls were covered in framed photos and drawings, portraits mostly. Some looked professionally done. Others appeared to be charcoal sketches or candid Polaroids. The faces were all different, but there was something vaguely familiar about them all. I wandered to the far side of the room and froze. On the wall, in the center of a large ornate frame, was a portrait of me. It was unmistakable. My face. My expression. I didn't even remember taking the photo. It looked candid, as if it had been taken while I was lost in thought, not posing. I could feel the color drain from my face. "Eli," I said, trying to keep my tone light, "is this me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I turned to him, searching for some kind of explanation. "But when was this taken?" "I don't remember." "I took it," he replied. My stomach twisted. "When?" "A few months ago. Before we matched." I felt a knot of unease form in my chest. He stepped closer, his expression still calm, but his eyes had that intensity one hadn't noticed before. "I saw you at the park one day. You were reading a book near the fountain. I was sitting nearby, sketching. You caught my eye. I couldn't help it. I took a photo." "You took a photo of me, before we met?" He nodded. "I followed you for a while. Nothing sinister. I just needed to understand who you were. I watched you from a distance. You fascinated me. My legs felt unsteady. You followed me?" Eli moved past me and gently touched the edge of the frame. "Don't you think it's strange how people say they want to be understood, but then recoil when someone actually sees them? You want honesty, and here it is. I saw you before you saw me. And I knew that you were going to mean something." I took a step back. "That's not romantic, Eli. That's stalking." He looked wounded, as if I had misunderstood a compliment. "You're special," he said. "I don't do this with just anyone. You're not just another profile. You were the missing piece." That's when I noticed the other photos again. The people in them, the ones I thought looked familiar, they all looked like me. Variations of me. Different hairstyles. Different clothes. But the same bone structure, the same eyes. "Oh my God," I whispered. I walked toward the hallway and peeked inside a partially closed door. Inside was a studio space, filled with more drawings. Dozens of them. All of me. From angles I didn't recognize, in places I had never seen him. A sketch of me at the grocery store. A charcoal rendering of me sitting on my own balcony. My heart thundered in my chest. "You've been watching me," I said. He didn't deny it. "I studied you. You inspired me. You don't understand yet, but we're connected. You're the culmination of everything I've been waiting for." I bolted. He didn't chase me. He just stood in the doorway of his apartment, that same calm expression plastered on his face, as I ran down the stairs and out into the cold Vancouver night. I didn't even wait to get home before I blocked him. I deleted the app, changed my number, even got a new phone. For weeks, I jumped every time I saw someone vaguely his shape in the distance. I took different routes to work. I kept my curtains closed. I scrubbed my online presence down to almost nothing. But it didn't stop. The messages started a month later. From unknown numbers. Pictures of me in public, on my way to work, grabbing coffee, walking my dog. And the notes. "You looked beautiful in the bookstore today. I've almost finished the new sketch. You'll love it. I told you, we're meant to be." I moved. Twice. Still, the messages came. I met Lena in Portland, where I'd moved to escape the everythingness of New York. I'd grown tired of city noise, relationships that flickered and died like bad fluorescent lights, and the feeling that I was always just slightly behind in life. Lena's dating profile stood out for one reason. She looked like she belonged to another time. She had that classic, old Hollywood vibe. Soft features, red lips, and dark hair swept up like she'd just walked off a 1950s film set. Her bio was short. "I make things. I fix broken dolls. I believe in preservation. Let's talk." We matched, and the conversation was weirdly soothing. Lena didn't speak like other people online. She wrote in complete sentences, like her thoughts had been carefully stitched together before sending. She asked me questions about nostalgia. What smells reminded me of childhood? What sound gave me comfort? Whether I ever missed a version of myself I'd forgotten. There was something graceful about her energy. A little offbeat, sure, but this was Portland. Quirky was currency here. After a few days of chatting, we decided to meet. She invited me over. Normally, I wouldn't go to someone's house for a first date. But Lena said she rarely went out. She worked from home as a restoration artist, specializing in antique dolls and mannequins. She lived in an old craftsman-style house tucked into the southeast side of town, vines curling up its faded blue exterior. It was one of those homes that looked like it should have a ghost or at least 100-year-old secret buried in its floorboards. When she opened the door, I remember thinking she looked even more like her photos, not because of filters or lighting, but because she didn't seem to belong to the present. She wore a vintage dress and black velvet gloves. "Come in," she said softly. "They're excited to meet you." I thought she meant her roommates. She did not. Lena's home was dim, lit by warm sconces and a flickering fireplace. The furniture was antique, some of it visibly cracked, others covered with white sheets like they were being preserved between acts of a play. The first mannequin stood near the door. It startled me, not because it was there, but because it was positioned perfectly. Not shoved in a corner, not draped with clothes, but standing with one hand slightly extended, as if it had been paused in mid-motion. "Part of my work," Lena said, noticing my reaction. "I rescue them, fix them, give them homes again." As we moved deeper into the house, I realized there weren't just one or two mannequins. There were dozens. Some sat at the dining room table, others lined the walls of the hallway. They were all different, male, female, androgynous, and all dressed in clothes that didn't seem random. I passed one in a flannel jacket that looked identical to the one I'd worn on our video chat a few nights ago. I stopped. "Where did you get that jacket?" I asked. "Oh, that," she smiled. "I thrift. I collect. I piece people back together." We sat in the living room. Tea was already steeping in a chipped porcelain pot, and she poured it as if we were in a scene from a silent film. Our conversation started normally enough, about books, restoration, her fascination with forgotten things. But it quickly turned. She asked me questions that dug deeper than usual. What part of you do you most want to keep forever? Have you ever felt like someone stole a part of your soul? What would you do to be remembered? I gave vague answers, brushing them off with awkward laughs. Then she said, I remember you from before. Before what? Before now, she said like it explained everything. I didn't know how to respond. So I sipped my tea and tried to smile. That's when I noticed something strange about the fireplace mantel. There was a photo on it, a candid shot of me, taken from behind, sitting in Laurelhurst Park. The same bench I always used. I stood up slowly, walking toward it. When did you take this? I asked. She didn't look up. I didn't. I found it. Sometimes, when people matter, their presence leaves an echo. I just collect them. A chill ran down my spine. I set the teacup down and muttered something about needing to go. Lena stood, calmly blocking the hallway. I haven't shown you the gallery, she said. I really should. But she was already leading me to the back of the house. I followed, against every instinct screaming in my head. The room she led me to was colder. The air smelled like dust and lavender. And the mannequins were different. These weren't generic or cracked or obviously second-hand. These were precise. Exact. One wore my college hoodie. Another had my favorite scarf. One had a mole in the exact same spot on its cheek as I did. They weren't just mannequins. They were copies. Of me. I turned to run. Lena didn't move to stop me. She just said, It's okay. Everyone's afraid, at first. But once I preserve you, the real you, you'll be safe forever. I didn't answer. I just ran. Out of the house, into the street, into the night. I blocked her number. I reported her profile. I changed apartments. But 2 weeks later, a package showed up at my door. No return address. Inside, a velvet-lined box. And a porcelain mask, painted to look exactly like me. Hair, eyes, expression. Identical. Beneath it, a note. The original always fades. But the preserved ones remain. I made you still. I made you forever. I burned the box. Moved again. Cut my hair. Deleted my accounts. I met Mara in a way that felt too cinematic to be real. I was in New Orleans, staying for a few months on a work project. My team was helping restore the interior of an old French Quarter hotel. One Saturday afternoon, I wandered into a tucked-away tea shop on Royal Street, the kind that's all exposed brick, trailing ivy, and the scent of bergamot hanging in the air. She was already seated at the corner table when I walked in. Mara. Dark curls. Pale skin. Eyes like smoke in storm water. I hadn't even ordered when she spoke to me. You're late, she said with a soft smile. Sorry? I blinked, confused. She gestured to the seat across from her. You always find me eventually. In every life. I thought it was a line. A weirdly poetic one, sure, but it was New Orleans, after all. A city that breathes strange stories. I sat down out of curiosity, more than anything else. We started talking. She was unlike anyone I'd met before. She didn't ask the usual small-talk questions. She asked about dreams. About déjà vu. About whether I ever had the feeling of waking up and forgetting something important. She spoke about fate like it was something you could feel in your bloodstream, like hunger or heat. Part of me was skeptical. Another part was intrigued. Mara told me she was a spiritual historian. She studied connections through time, between people, places, and souls. You and I, she said, stirring her tea gently, are part of a shared cycle. We found each other again. You just don't remember yet. I didn't believe her. But I couldn't deny I felt something strange, like we'd skipped the getting-to-know-you stage and dropped straight into the middle of something I hadn't agreed to, but didn't want to leave. We started spending time together. Walks along the river. Long talks in cafes where she'd read my palm and whisper things like, You always carry sadness in your left shoulder. In every life. I wrote it off as quirky. New age. Harmless. Then she invited me to her place. She lived just outside the city in a creaky, sprawling house near Bayou St. John. The kind of place where the walls remembered things. The inside was a kaleidoscope of the past, candles burned in every corner, and tapestries hung like guardians above strange statues. Her furniture looked borrowed from a museum. There were books in Latin and glass bowls full of dried herbs. One room was entirely covered in mirrors, none of which reflected the same light. Still, I went back a second time, and a third, until one night things changed. Mara told me she wanted to show me something important, something sacred. She asked me to come over for a gathering. It's nothing formal, she said. Just a meeting of the soul family. You're part of it. You always have been. I laughed at first, thinking she meant some kind of book club or meditation group. It wasn't. When I arrived, the house was dark, the air heavy with incense. Candles flickered in a wide circle on the wooden floor. As I stepped into the living room, my footsteps echoed oddly, like I was being swallowed by the space. There were people there, about a dozen, and they all looked eerily familiar. Different versions of me. Some older, some younger. One woman, one man with longer hair and a scar I had on my shoulder, in the exact same place. They were dressed differently, styles from other eras, some modern, some almost Victorian. But each one of them had something, a facial feature, a movement, a smile, that felt too close to mine. I stood frozen in the doorway. Mara approached from behind, placing a soft hand on my back. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. "These are echoes of you, from lives you've lived before. You called them here." My throat went dry. "What is this?" "It's not a ritual," she said. "It's a remembrance. You are waking up. And they came to guide you home." I started to back away. "I thought you said this was just a gathering," I said. "It is," she said gently. "A welcoming. We've been waiting for you." I tried to leave. Mara blocked the door, her smile slipping into something colder, more patient. "You always panic at first," she said. "But you'll remember. You always do." The people in the circle turned toward me. They didn't move. They didn't speak. But every single one of them was staring. And one of them, a version of me wearing a navy jacket I had lost last year, began to cry. "I don't want this," I said. Mara didn't flinch. "That's not how it works. You've already been chosen. You chose yourself." I bolted. This time, she didn't stop me. I don't remember the drive home. Just my pulse pounding in my ears, and the taste of copper in my mouth. I blocked her number, deleted the app, scrubbed my social accounts. But she found ways to reach me. Handwritten letters in my mailbox. Polaroids slipped under my windshield, photos of the circle. Of me in the room, sitting in the center. In one photo, I was smiling. I never smiled that night. Then came the dreams. I'd wake in a sweat, remembering voices I'd never heard, but somehow recognized. Faces from old paintings twisting into my own. I started seeing my doppelganger in crowds. In line at the grocery store. Reflected behind me in mirrors. Mara's final message came in a small wooden box, wrapped in black ribbon. Inside, a note. "You are the missing piece. The cycle is incomplete without you." They still wait. And underneath the note, a circle of ash. In its center, a single tooth. Mine. From a molar I lost in childhood. I don't know how she got it. I don't know how any of it is possible. But I left New Orleans the next morning. Moved across the country. Changed my name. Before I met Jules, I thought I had a pretty firm grasp on reality. I'd just moved to Wellington, New Zealand to start fresh after quitting a job that had burned me out completely. It was a good kind of reset, clean apartment, new friends, and a clear head. Jules was the type of guy who made you believe you were incredibly lucky just to be in his orbit. He had that effortless charm, the kind that wasn't forced or loud, just present. It was in his voice, in the way he listened, how he remembered tiny details like my favorite ramen spot or the name of the dog I had in childhood. We met at an outdoor screening of an old Miyazaki film, both reaching for the same box of Pocky at the concession stand. I joked that he could have it if he promised not to spoil the ending. He laughed and told me I was wearing the exact shade of green from the movie's poster. It was weirdly specific, but somehow I liked it. We started seeing each other casually. Walks along the harbor, sleepy morning coffees, bookstore dates, and it wasn't long before I started spending more time at his place than my own. Everything felt easy. For a while. It started small. One night, Jules asked why I hadn't texted him back earlier that day. I blinked. I had. I even showed him the message. "Can't wait to see you tonight, smiley face, sent at 2:13 p.m. He stared at it, then at me. "That's not what you sent. You said you might not come." I frowned. "No, I didn't." He didn't argue. Just gave this tight smile and said, "Maybe I misread it." But from that moment, things changed. Over the next few weeks, more things began slipping. He'd reference conversations we supposedly had, about me wanting to take a trip to Queenstown or quitting school to travel. Things I had zero memory of saying. He'd accuse me of flaking on plans, claiming I said I'd meet him at a certain time or place. And when I insisted I hadn't, he'd just smile and say, "You're probably just tired." I started to doubt myself. Maybe I had said those things and forgot. Maybe I was tired. Or distracted. or stressed. And Jules was always understanding. Gentle. He'd cut my face and say, "It's okay. I'm here." We all forget things sometimes. The more I leaned on him for clarity, the more foggy I became. I started writing things down in a little notebook, just to remember them. Not just plans or dates. Thoughts. Memories. Feelings. One day, I told Jules I was thinking of dyeing my hair darker. He smiled. "You already did, remember? Last summer. You hated it." I hadn't. But when I asked my friend Marley about it, she hesitated. "I think you did. Maybe? You posted a photo with a filter. Maybe that's what he means." I checked. The photo in question had a filter, yes. But I'd never actually dyed my hair. I started to feel like I was living beside myself. Like my timeline and Jules's weren't syncing. One night, I stayed over at his place. When I woke up, I couldn't find my phone. Jules said he didn't see it. I tore the apartment apart. Nothing. The next day, he texted me from a number I didn't recognize. "Found your phone under the bed. Must have slipped down." Smiley face. When he gave it back, the lock screen photo had changed. It was now a picture of us I didn't remember taking. We were at a lighthouse I'd never been to. When I asked him about it, he said, "You're kidding, right? That was our first trip together." I laughed nervously. I think I'd remember going to a lighthouse. He looked genuinely hurt. "Are you serious?" We drove up the coast, stayed in that Airbnb with the blue kettle. "You cried when we saw the ocean. You told me it was the first time in years you felt like yourself." I stared at him, my mouth dry. "Jules, that didn't happen." He took a deep breath, turned away. "Maybe you don't want to remember it. But it did." After that, I started recording everything. Not just in my notebook, but on my phone. Voice memos. Video clips. Timestamp selfies. Because it wasn't just Jules anymore. My friends were starting to confirm his versions of events. Marley said, "Didn't you say you and Jules went to that cabin last month? You showed me pictures." I never had. But when I checked my camera roll, the photos were there. Me and Jules, smiling at a cabin in the woods. I didn't remember any of it, but I was in the photos. I was laughing. I looked happy. Too happy. Unreal. I confronted him. "Are you messing with my head?" He didn't act surprised. Just sad. "I think you're having a breakdown. You should talk to someone. I can come with you. We'll figure it out together." He was always calm. Always kind. Never angry. And that made it so much worse. Because how could I fight someone who only ever seemed to be trying to help me? I started having dreams. Vivid, cinematic dreams. Of places I'd never been. People I'd never met. In each one, Jules was there. Smiling. Saying, "You remember now, don't you?" I stopped sleeping. Stopped trusting myself. The final straw came when I found my notebook at his apartment. The one I kept hidden. He said he found it in my bag. He'd written in it. Lines like, "I told Jules I loved him today. The trip to the lighthouse was perfect." I don't know why I forget things sometimes. Jules helps me remember. His handwriting. Not mine. I left. Blocked him. Changed my number. Deleted everything. I even left Wellington for a while, stayed with family in Auckland. I tried to rebuild my mind. But now, I can't tell what's real. I find photos I don't remember taking. Messages from numbers I don't know saying, "You were happiest with me." When I met Remy, I was still recovering from a bad breakup and wasn't ready to jump into anything serious. I wasn't looking for love. Honestly, I just wanted to feel seen again. Noticed. And Remy had a way of making you feel like the only person in the world when he looked at you. We met through a dating app in Edinburgh, where I'd recently moved for grad school. His profile was minimal, mostly black and white photos of city streets, graffiti, and what looked like long exposure shots of blurred figures at night. His bio just said, "I see the beauty in stillness." We matched on a rainy Tuesday night. Our messages were brief but compelling. He didn't make small talk. He asked me things like, "What does your silence sound like?" And "What part of your past do you still carry in your shadow?" I was intrigued. Maybe it was pretentious. But after the bland conversations I'd had with others on the app, Remy's words felt like a brushstroke across glass, soft, strange, and clear. He asked to meet in person after 3 days of chatting. I agreed, partly out of curiosity and partly because, despite how weird it all was, I found myself wanting to know what he looked like in motion. We met at a little gallery tucked between a second-hand bookstore and a locksmith's in the old town. Remy had chosen the spot, because there was an exhibit on found moments in urban photography. He was already there when I arrived, tall, thin, dressed in layers of gray and black. His eyes were this strange shade of green that didn't seem to belong to anyone under 30. He smiled, and it wasn't a nervous smile or a polite one. It was knowing, like he'd been expecting me for longer than 3 days. We walked the exhibit slowly, barely speaking. He'd lean close to certain photographs and say things like, "This one feels like you," without explaining why. And somehow, it didn't feel like a line. It felt like he meant it. After the gallery, we got coffee and sat by a window watching people pass by in the fog. He told me about his photography, how he didn't just take pictures, he captured presence. That was the phrase he used. "There's the face people wear," he said, tapping the table lightly. "And then there's the moment between thoughts. The gap. That's the real person. Most cameras can't see it. But I can." It should have creeped me out. But the way he spoke was calm, precise, and oddly poetic. I left that night feeling like I'd been observed, not judged. And maybe that was what I needed right then. Things moved quickly after that. Remy was attentive, but never overwhelming. We'd spend long hours at his flat, a narrow, plant-filled place on the top floor of an old sandstone building. He played ambient records and brewed herbal teas, and spoke in metaphors. He never raised his voice, never got flustered. He was a study in quiet intensity. He showed me some of his photography, too. Not the ones from his profile. These were raw, haunting. Candid moments of strangers, caught at angles that made you feel like you were seeing something you shouldn't. A woman crying on a bench at dusk. A child staring into a puddle as if it were a portal. A man in the middle of a laugh that looked more like a scream. "How do you get these shots?" I asked. He shrugged. "You just have to watch. Be patient. People reveal everything when they think no one's looking." He never let me take his picture. Not once. A few weeks in, he asked if he could photograph me. "Nothing posed," he said. "Just your essence. You won't even notice." I agreed. I didn't think much of it. I figured he'd take a few portraits while I was distracted, maybe while I was reading or brushing my hair. And at first, that's what it was. I'd catch the click of the shutter when I was mid-laugh or lost in thought. Then I started noticing more. There were times I'd be walking home alone and get the strange sense that I was being watched. I'd glance over my shoulder, but the street would always be empty. One evening, I passed by a storefront and saw a reflection, a figure ducking out of sight the moment I turned. When I brought it up to Remy, he said, "Maybe it's your shadow finally catching up to you." I laughed, but my chest felt tight. The turning point came on a rainy Sunday. We were at his flat, listening to some droning instrumental loop, when he said he wanted to show me something special. He led me into a small back room I hadn't seen before. It smelled like dust and old paper. The walls were lined with filing cabinets and shelves stacked with photo albums. Dozens of them. He pulled one from the shelf. My name was written on the spine. Inside were hundreds of photos. All of me. Not just from our time together. Years. Photos of me in New York, at a party I barely remembered. Sitting in a cafe during my undergrad days. Walking alone in a coat I hadn't owned in 5 years. Some were grainy, others crisp. Different cities. Different haircuts. All of them private moments I hadn't shared with anyone. My hands went cold. How did you get these?" Remy was calm, serene even. "I saw you. Before we met. I've always seen you. You have a resonance. A frequency that called to me. I followed it. I stepped back. You were stalking me?" He frowned, as if I'd insulted him. "I was witnessing you. Documenting. Preserving your essence. You don't understand yet, but you will. The world forgets us. It scrubs us away. I refused to let you be erased. I wanted to run. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed answers. I opened another album. More photos. My old apartment building. My dog that died in college. My parents' driveway. He had been watching for years. I turned to him, voice shaking. "Why me?" He looked at me the way someone looks at a painting they've spent their life trying to finish. "Because you're real. And real things deserve to be kept." I left. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I just told him I needed space. He didn't fight it. Just kissed my hand and said, "When you're ready, I'll be here." I blocked his number. Deleted the app. Moved to a new flat across the city. But it didn't stop. Photos started arriving in my mail. Envelopes with no return address. Images of me taken the day before. One of me unlocking my new apartment. One of me riding the tram. One of me asleep, visible through the crack in my bedroom curtains. Each envelope had one line written on the back. Stillness is forever. I changed my number, got a restraining order, even went to the police. But there was no proof he took the photos. No fingerprints. Nothing to link him. And I never saw him again. I matched with Elias in early October, the time of year when everything in Sedona feels like it's glowing from the inside out. The desert air was crisp, the tourist crowds had thinned, and I had just gotten out of a 2-year relationship that left me feeling unmoored. His profile was brief but intriguing. Artist, traveler, soul weaver. If we find each other here, it's not by accident. Normally I would have swiped left, but something about the phrasing caught me. We matched instantly. Elias messaged me with none of the usual small talk. No hey, how's your day? Or what brings you to the app? His first message read, do you believe in returning souls? Because I've met you before. Not just once. Many times. I should have laughed it off. Blocked. Moved on. Instead, I replied. There was something disarming about the way he wrote. Poetic but not forced, intense but not pushy. He told me he worked with energy patterns, reading spiritual timelines, and helping people reclaim the selves they've forgotten in other lives. It sounded like New Age fluff, but I was in a vulnerable place, and Elias made vulnerability feel like something sacred. We talked every night for a week. By the end of it, I was hooked on the way he saw the world, like everything had hidden meaning, like pain was just another kind of connection. We met for the first time at a trailhead just outside town. He wore white linen barefoot, with a red cord tied around his wrist. He smelled faintly of sage and sandalwood, and he spoke in a soft, reverent tone, like everything he said was part of a ceremony. I knew it was you, he said as soon as he saw me. You feel the same. You always do. We hiked in silence for a while before settling on a rock ledge that overlooked a canyon washed in gold. I want to show you something, he said, pulling a thin journal from his satchel. Inside were pages of sketches, dozens of them. All of me. Not perfectly rendered portraits, but versions of me. Different hair, different clothes, but the same face, same posture, same eyes. I've seen you in dreams. Meditations. Past life regressions, Elias said, flipping through them. You've always returned to me. You always will. I didn't know how to respond. It should have creeped me out. But instead I felt drawn in. Like I was being offered a purpose I hadn't realized I was missing. That night, he invited me to a gathering. A soul circle, he said, where people remember who they really are. I hesitated. I won't pressure you, he added, but I think you'll feel it. The pull. I went. The gathering was in a quiet adobe house nestled between two red rock formations. Inside, candles lined the walls, and the scent of lavender and burnt wood hung heavy in the air. There were about 10 others, barefoot, serene, all dressed in off-white. They welcomed me like I was already one of them. We sat in a circle on woven mats while Elias burned sage and spoke about soul contracts, reincarnation, and how people from the same soul family are destined to find each other again and again. The others nodded in agreement. Some wept silently. A woman across from me reached out and touched my hand. You're the last thread, she whispered. We've been waiting. That night, Elias told me more. Every soul family has a final member, he said, brushing hair from my face. The one who anchors the rest. The one who makes the pattern whole. You think that's me? I know it. Things escalated quickly after that. I was invited to every gathering, given a white robe, asked to share my dreams, my fears, my memories, even the ones I wasn't sure were real anymore. The more time I spent with Elias and the group, the fuzzier everything outside it became. My job didn't matter. Friends texted, and I didn't reply. Family calls went unanswered. Out there, Elias said one night, you're just noise in a machine. But here, your soul. I believed him. Until the night of the alignment. They told me it was the final ceremony. It's time to root your spirit fully, Elias said, his eyes shining with something I couldn't name. So you stop drifting between lives. So you stay. They took me to a secluded cabin in the canyon. The others were already there, seated in a circle. At the center, a mirror surrounded by candles and ropes of red thread. Elias stood behind me, guiding me forward. This is the rebirth, he whispered. I sat down, heart pounding. They began to chant. The mirror shimmered with the candlelight, and Elias began to wind the red thread around my wrists, tying them gently, almost like a ritual wedding. You've wandered long enough, he said, but now your soul is home, and we will never lose you again. That's when I knew something was wrong. I tried to stand, but hands gently, too gently, held me in place. Elias knelt in front of me. Shh. It's okay. The resistance is just the old life trying to hold on. Let it go. I pulled harder. The thread bit into my wrists. I saw the same calm smile on every face in the room, like they'd rehearsed this moment over and over. Like I had no say in it. I don't remember how I got out. I think adrenaline took over. I must have pulled hard enough to snap the thread or twist free. I ran into the desert barefoot, heart pounding, with candlelight behind me and silence chasing at my heels. I didn't stop until I saw headlights. A park ranger found me on the road, bleeding and half hysterical. I didn't tell him everything. What could I say? That I was the final soul in a cult's cosmic web? That they thought they'd found me across lifetimes? I told him I got lost on a hike. He believed me. I moved a week later. Changed my number. Blocked every contact. But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and find red thread on the floor near my bed. Or a candle, still warm, in the corner of the room. They haven't stopped watching. And I know they still believe. That eventually I'll come back. That I'll remember who I am. And who I belong to. I wasn't struggling exactly, not in the dramatic sense, but life in Toronto had been draining me in slow, silent ways. Rent swallowed half my paycheck, my barista job stole my weekends, and the dating scene was a carousel of emotionally unavailable men who flinched at the word feelings. So when I saw the ad on my For You page, sleek black background, gold lettering, a single line that read, "Be spoiled." No strings. Just elegance. I didn't scroll past. It led to a high-end site I'd never heard of. Not Tinder. Not even Seeking. This one was different. It was curated. Exclusive. Classy. Or at least pretending to be. That's how I met Julian. He messaged me first. His profile photo was tasteful, black and white, blazer, hand in his pocket, leaning on a balcony overlooking some unnamed city skyline. His bio was short, too. Investor. Traveler. Patron of beauty. Looking for someone to remind me how soft the world can be. I rolled my eyes at that line, but he was handsome. Late 30s, sharp features, eyes that looked like they'd studied you before you even said a word. I replied. Our first few conversations were casual, but intense. He didn't flirt the way men usually did, no emojis, no empty compliments. He asked questions like, "Do you feel seen where you are? And what's the one thing you want if money wasn't a barrier?" I told him the truth. I wanted rest. Just stillness. Quiet. A chance to stop feeling like I was always one bill away from sinking. That's when he made his offer. "Let me take care of you," he said. It wasn't about sex, he was clear about that. It was about presence. Companionship. Time. He'd pay me a generous monthly allowance, send gifts, cover expenses. In return, we'd spend time together. Talk. Be present. A kind of curated intimacy. No contracts. No expectations. It felt surreal. I agreed. The first month was like stepping into a dream. Julian sent a black card to pick me up on our first date. We went to a rooftop restaurant in Yorkville that I'd only ever walked past on my way to cheaper places. The food was perfect. The wine never ran dry. And Julian was captivating. He listened with his whole body. Asked about my writing, my childhood, my insomnia. He never interrupted. He smiled often, but never broadly. He carried an air of stillness that was easy to sink into. After dinner, he handed me a small envelope. Inside, an Amex card with my name on it. "Use it for yourself," he said. "Don't insult me by asking permission." I didn't. The next few weeks were filled with little luxuries. He sent fresh flowers every Sunday. Booked me a massage on a Wednesday afternoon. Had my favorite poetry book, out of print, delivered in a wrapped box with a handwritten note that said, "You deserve to be reminded that your softness has value." I felt seen, cared for, elevated. But the shift happened slowly. It always does. It started with suggestions. "Don't wear those old sneakers to dinner. They don't match your presence." He sent me shoes. Beautiful leather, handmade. They cost more than my rent. Then came the calendar. He invited me to add my availability. But instead of open-ended invites, he started assigning dates. Dinner. 7 p.m. Friday. Stay the night. I'll have the guest room ready. Wear black. It suits you. At first I thought, whatever. He's just particular. But then he started commenting on things I hadn't told him. "I saw you went to that cafe on College Street this morning. How was it?" I paused. "How did you know?" He smiled. "I've got a good memory." I let it go. But it kept happening. I noticed you liked a photo of some old flame on Instagram. I saw you canceled your dentist appointment. Don't ignore your health. You changed your hair. You didn't ask. The last one made me stop mid-sentence. I didn't know I needed permission, I said. He looked at me quietly for a long beat. Then said, you don't. But I notice everything about you. I thought you liked that. One night, after too much wine and not enough food, I asked him if he'd ever done this before, this sugar baby setup. Not quite, he said. This is different. How? You don't feel like a transaction. I wanted to be flattered. But it sounded like a warning. The next time I visited, his condo was colder. Not in temperature, in tone. He didn't greet me with a drink or a kiss. Just handed me a silk dress on a hanger. Put this on. I've arranged a photographer. Hey, what? I want portraits, he said simply. Of you. In my space. It didn't feel like a question. I wore the dress. The photographer, a thin, pale man with eyes like polished stones, didn't speak to me. He adjusted my hair. My posture. Julian directed from the corner. Softer expression. Chin down. Less teeth. Afterward, Julian was beaming. You don't even realize what a masterpiece you are, he said. The photos arrived the next week, printed and framed. All of them hung in his hallway. Every single one. I never gave consent. I started to feel the walls closing in. I tried to put distance between us. Ignored a few texts. Declined an invite. He responded with silence. And then one night, a knock on my door. It was a courier. He handed me a velvet box. Inside, a necklace. A thin gold chain with a single charm, a tiny lock. No key. Attached was a note. You're still mine. Rest is earned, not given. That was when I knew. It wasn't love. Or generosity. Or kindness. It was control, dressed as elegance. He never cared about who I was. Only how I looked beside him, how I sounded when I agreed, how my softness made him feel important. I packed everything he'd ever given me, the clothes, the shoes, the books, and left them outside his building. No note. No goodbye. He didn't message for weeks. But then, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, a single photograph of me, taken from outside my building. I was carrying groceries, smiling at my phone. On the back of the photo, in that tight, perfect script of his, you don't walk away from what feeds you. I moved a month later, changed my number, deleted every app one had used to meet him. But sometimes when I walk past a mirror too quickly, I swear I see something over my shoulder. Watching, measuring, still holding the leash. I met Alec on a Wednesday, in one of those quiet lulls where nothing in my life felt particularly meaningful. I was living in Boston, working a remote job that blurred the days into beige, texting my friends half-hearted memes while secretly wondering if I was slipping into the kind of loneliness that makes you forget who you were 5 years ago. Alec was a match on Hinge, one of many. But he stood out. Not because of what he looked like, though, yeah, he was beautiful, jawline, scruff, perfect smile, but because of how fast he moved. His first message wasn't hey, or what's up. It was, you have a look like you've been waiting to be understood. I don't care how guarded you are, that kind of message lands. We talked for 3 hours that night. He told me he liked the way I phrased things, said I had an old soul rhythm in how I spoke. He made me laugh. He remembered tiny details. He sent me a photo of his dog curled up next to his record player. Feels like he loves vinyl more than I do, he said. By Friday, we had a dinner date planned. From the moment I saw Alec in person, it felt like I was already inside something. Like a dream I'd walked into mid-scene. He greeted me like we'd done this before, arms open, a little smile like he'd been expecting me. You're real, he said. Even better than I pictured. Dinner was perfect. He was attentive, thoughtful, intense without being creepy. He complimented my earrings, told me my voice had a calming frequency, and when I mentioned liking poetry, he quoted Ocean Vuong to me. I wanted to be beautiful, so I became yours. I should have seen it then. Too perfect. Too fast. But I didn't want to. Not when I'd spent months feeling invisible. Alec texted me every morning after that. Good morning, you beautiful thing. Can't stop thinking about that story you told me about your grandfather. Made me emotional. I saw someone wearing your lipstick shade today and smiled like an idiot. Flowers arrived at my door 1 week in. 2 books the week after that. A handwritten letter tucked in my mailbox the next. He took me to a jazz bar one night and whispered in my ear, "You feel like home and a road trip all at once." I remember thinking, is this what it's supposed to feel like? But 3 weeks in, the text pace slowed. Then stopped. No explanation. No fight. Nothing. I texted once. Hey, everything okay? No reply. 2 days passed. Then a week. Silence. I assumed something terrible had happened. Maybe a car accident. Maybe a family emergency. Or maybe the worst option, I was too much. I spiraled. Cried in the shower. Reread our messages. Replayed every detail of our last date for clues I couldn't find. Then, just as suddenly as he vanished, he came back. Sorry, he wrote one night at 2:13 a.m. Got overwhelmed. I miss you. That was it. Just, I miss you. Like we'd had a decades-long love story instead of 4 dates and a ghosting. Still, I responded. Of course I did. We met up again that weekend. He was the same, soft, magnetic, full of poetic one-liners that made you feel like he'd studied you. But this time, there was a distance behind his eyes. A delay in his touch. Everything just felt loud for a while, he explained. But being with you, it's quiet again. I let him back in. It repeated like that. A pattern. A wave. He'd pull me close, make me feel like the only girl on earth, then vanish into silence just long enough to break me open, before reappearing with a story about being emotionally exhausted or working through things. He never admitted fault, just confusion. And I always took him back, because each time, it felt like maybe this time he'd finally stay. But then I met Eva. It was by accident. A cafe downtown. I was waiting for my coffee when I saw Alec walk in, not alone. He was with her. Same open arms. Same easy smile. Same rhythm. I stood still watching. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did, and didn't care. I waited until they sat down, then I approached. He looked up, stunned. Hey, I said. He opened his mouth like he had 1,000 excuses, but I wasn't looking at him. I looked at her. Sorry to interrupt, I said. I just want to ask, has he quoted Ocean Vuong yet? She blinked. Yes, she said slowly. Last week. I nodded. Then I walked out. She messaged me later. I don't know how she found me, but she did. Said she wasn't sure if I was lying or heartbroken or crazy, but something in her gut told her to listen. We met up. Talked for 2 hours. He had said the same things. Sent the same books. The same flowers. Even the same photos of the dog, but cropped differently. It wasn't just a game. It was a script. A performance. One he'd done dozens of times. We found 3 other women. All within the same 6-month window. One of them, Mira, showed us her notes, literal journal entries. She'd charted the timeline of his attention drop-off periods. She said she thought he was bipolar at first, or grieving something, or maybe scared of love. But no, he was just addicted to the beginning, to the high of discovery, to the part where you believe someone sees you. I blocked him after that, deleted every message, every picture, every trace. But sometimes I wonder how many others he's love-bombing right now. How many coffee shop moments he's scripting. How many poems he's reciting like original thoughts. I wonder if they feel what I did, like the center of someone's world. Until he replaces you with the next orbit. The worst part? Sometimes I still miss him. Not him exactly. Just the feeling of being chosen so completely. Even if it was a lie. Even if it was never about me. I matched with Silas in early spring, right when I was feeling like my life had stagnated. I was 29, stuck in a marketing job I didn't care about in Minneapolis, watching all my friends either get married or start therapy or spiral out, sometimes all 3. I wasn't spiraling, but I was drifting. Silas was the opposite of a drift. He was sharp, his profile crisp, clean. A few curated shots. One of him walking through an art gallery, one at a mountaintop somewhere misty, and a single black and white portrait where he looked like he belonged in a catalog for luxury watches. His bio read, Minimalist. System reformer. I believe the truest version of you is the one you haven't met yet. Something about that line stuck in my head. We matched. He messaged first. Our chats were intelligent. Thoughtful. Never flirty. He'd ask strange, incisive questions. If you could erase one memory, would you? What would you keep if you had to leave everything behind? How much of your identity is based on survival? I didn't really know how to answer, but I tried. It felt like a conversation with a therapist who already knew all the answers and was just letting you talk to catch up. We met 2 weeks later at a tea house on a quiet street downtown. Silas wore a dark jacket, everything ironed and fitted. He walked like someone who never ran for buses, like everything would wait for him. I half expected him to be dull in person. He wasn't. He spoke softly but deliberately, like each sentence had been selected in advance. Do you ever feel like you've outgrown your name? He asked me over jasmine tea. Excuse me? Your name, he said again. It doesn't really belong to you. Your parents gave it to you before you were anyone. That's strange, isn't it? To carry a label you never chose. I laughed awkwardly. I've never really thought about it. I have, he said. Names, birthdays, jobs, all these things you didn't really pick, and you've built your whole world around them. There was something magnetic in the way he said it. I didn't agree, not exactly, but I couldn't stop listening. We started seeing each other casually. Once a week, then twice. We'd go to little minimalist cafes or art installations that only existed for a weekend. He never invited me to his place, but he'd always walk me home, always say something that felt just strange enough to make me think about it later. Things like, the self isn't permanent. It's just repetition. I think most people are just pretending to be consistent. Then came the night that changed everything. We had dinner at a quiet, underground sushi bar. When the check came, he looked at me and said, I want to show you something. My place. You'll like it. He'd never invited me before. I said yes. Silas's apartment was unlike anything I'd expected. It wasn't just minimal, it was surgical. White walls, stainless steel counters, no art, no clutter. It felt less like a home and more like a showroom. Not one family photo, not a single personal object in sight. He handed me a glass of water, nothing fancy, just cold and clear, and said, This is where I bring people when they're ready. Ready for what? He didn't answer, just gestured for me to follow him down a hallway. We entered a room with a projector and a blank wall. He turned it on, and there I was. Footage of me. Not security camera footage, curated footage. Personal moments I didn't even remember happening. Me walking home from work, humming. Me sitting in the park reading. Me brushing my hair in my bedroom. One of the clips showed me standing at a crosswalk downtown. I remembered the moment only vaguely, the kind of non-memory that lives in the background of your life. How did you get this? I asked, my voice tight. Silas didn't answer. He just clicked to the next video. A childhood birthday party. Me at 7 years old, opening a purple box with glittered shoes inside. My father filming. That was on my dad's old camcorder, I said. Silas turned to me. Calm. Almost gentle. I've collected everything. Every version of you. Every echo. I stepped back. What are you talking about? I'm offering you freedom, he said. A reset. A clean slate. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside, a contract. Legal language. Real signatures. My name already typed in. The title read, Full Identity Redesign Agreement. Client. My full name. Objective. Erase all prior identity markers and begin optimized self. I tried to laugh. I told him this was a joke. He didn't flinch. I've done this for others, he said. People who wanted to let go. All the things that make you feel stuck, your name, your past, your failures, I can erase them. Your accounts, your records, your digital footprint, even the people who remember you. What the hell are you talking about? He stepped closer. You don't need to be afraid. I've studied you for months. I know your rhythms. I know your voice. I've simulated your new life. It's ready. You'll be free. Completely remade. I dropped the folder. You're insane. He didn't look offended. Just disappointed. No, he said softly. I'm awake. And you could be too. I ran. He didn't chase me. Didn't yell. Just watched as I left. The next day, my phone reset itself. I lost all my contacts. My social media accounts were disabled. My email was locked. My name didn't pull up on search engines anymore. Not even LinkedIn. My birth certificate? The DMV? My online banking? Gone. Like someone had pulled me out of the system thread by thread. I went to the police. Filed a report. They said it must be a hacker. Maybe an identity thief. But they couldn't find any breach. No trail. No motive. Your name's not coming up in our internal system either, one officer said. Are you sure it's spelled right? I had to start over from scratch. New phone. New email. New job under a different name. I didn't go back to my old apartment. I didn't reach out to old friends. I was scared that if I made myself too visible again, Silas would show up, clipboard in hand, smile on his face, saying, You're still not complete. But we can fix that. Sometimes I wonder if he actually believed he was helping me. If the people he said he'd reset are out there somewhere, living lives that aren't theirs anymore. Names that weren't theirs. Memories that don't line up. I wonder how many of them started out like me. Just looking for a connection. Just saying yes to a second date. I still wake up some nights, gasping, sure that someone's replaced my reflection in the mirror. That my face is right, but my name doesn't belong to it anymore. That I'm walking around in someone else's life. Maybe Silas was right about one thing. We really are just repetition. I met Dorian at a storytelling night. He was one of the featured performers, tall, quiet, with a poet's cadence and the kind of presence that made you lean forward without realizing it. His story was about a girl who forgot the sound of her own laugh after a breakup, so she recorded herself laughing every day until it came back. Everyone clapped. I cried. After the event, he found me outside, near the food truck line. "You cried," he said, not accusingly, like he noticed the weather in my eyes. "It was a good story," I said. "Hope it's not based on something real." "It is," he replied. "But I'm not the one who forgot." Dorian was the kind of person who made you feel like time was folding in on itself, like you'd met before, even if you hadn't. He claimed to be a narrative memory specialist. At first, I thought that meant therapist or maybe documentarian. But when I asked what he actually did, he said, "I restore emotional continuity. Most people misremember who they were. I just help them find the real version again." I didn't know what the hell that meant. But I didn't ask. We started seeing each other. Casual at first. Coffee shops, late-night walks, record stores where we'd pass each other headphones and say close your eyes before the track started. Dorian listened to you in a way that felt rare. When you spoke, he leaned in slightly, never interrupted, and remembered everything. Not just facts. Emotions. Like, you smiled when you said that the first time. You're frowning now. He made me feel like I was unfolding in the right direction. After a few weeks, I started noticing strange little things. He'd recall moments we hadn't shared. "You remember that night we sat on your rooftop and counted planes?" I hadn't. Ever. But I smiled anyway, afraid I'd forgotten. Or when he gave me a necklace and said, "You dropped this at my place the first night we met." I hadn't worn a necklace, but it looked like something I'd own. And that made me pause. Still, it wasn't scary. Not yet. Just confusing. Memory's a funny thing. It bends when you're tired. It rewrites when you want something to be true. Dorian moved slowly. He never pushed me. But the things he gave me became stranger. A photograph of me, reading in a cafe, from a week before we'd met. A sketch of me asleep, curled on my couch, from an angle no one should have seen. I started questioning myself. Had we met before the storytelling night? Had he known me longer? Had I forgotten? One night, I brought it up. "Are you messing with my head?" He didn't flinch. Just took a sip of his tea and said, "Not at all. I'm just helping you find the real thread of who you are." He explained that memory wasn't just a record, it was a choice. That most people live inside warped timelines, distorted by pain, nostalgia, ego. "Most of your story," he said, "was written by someone else. I'm giving it back to you." That should have been the moment I walked away. But I didn't. Because I wanted to believe him. Over time, I began to forget things. Small things first, where I'd parked, what I wore to work, the name of a coworker I didn't like. Then bigger things, when we'd met, where I lived before Portland, how my last relationship ended. I'd ask Dorian, and he'd fill in the blanks, gently, lovingly. "You used to love yellow. Until your father told you it made you look sallow. So you stopped. You never liked concerts. You only went because your ex did. You once told me your favorite smell is pine and ozone, like the forest before a storm." None of it felt familiar, but he said it with such certainty. And he always had a photo, or a note, or a keepsake to prove it. One night I found a folder on his desk. It had my name. Inside were transcripts, conversations I didn't remember having. Pages and pages of my voice, word for word, telling him things I couldn't recall. Things that didn't sound like me. Like, "I've always hated the ocean. It makes me feel erased. I love the ocean. Didn't I?" I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He just said, "I'm fixing what they broke in you. You asked me to. Don't you remember?" I didn't. I left. Packed a bag while he was out getting wine. Took a lift to my sister's place. But even in her apartment, things felt wrong. She asked where I'd gotten my necklace. I told her Dorian gave it to me, from the night we met. She laughed. "That necklace? I gave you that on your 18th birthday." I didn't remember. Not even a flicker. Now it's been 4 months. I've moved cities. Changed my number. But sometimes I get packages. No return address. Inside, a drawing of me at 10, standing in a field I don't recognize. A note that says, "You used to sing when you were alone. I miss that." A photo of a beach towel, striped yellow and green. Captioned, "Your favorite." I don't know if any of it is real, but I remember them now. Not as doubts, as memories. That's what Dorian was doing. Not preserving me, replacing me, one story at a time. I met Callum on my third night in Edinburgh. I was sitting in a pub on Cowgate, nursing a cider, half listening to the acoustic set in the corner. The kind of night where everything feels a little off-kilter, jet lag, unfamiliar streets, homesickness buzzing at the edges. He approached with a gentle confidence, not cocky, but like he was walking into something that had already begun. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, gesturing to the stool across from me. I shook my head. And that was it. He sat. We talked. He was warm, thoughtful, a little older than me, early 40s maybe, with salt and pepper stubble and eyes that seemed to carry whole winters in them. He asked good questions, the kind that made you feel interesting without trying. "Where are you from? What brings you here? What did you leave behind?" I told him I was starting fresh. New job, new flat, new everything. He smiled slowly. Sometimes the right things come back when you leave the wrong ones behind. I didn't really get it, but I nodded anyway. We saw each other again the next day. And the day after that. What started as casual drinks became late-night dinners, long walks down the Royal Mile, quiet mornings with coffee and rain tapping the windows. It felt effortless. Callum made me feel seen, like someone had been waiting for me, even if I hadn't known I was being waited for. He said things like, "You move the same way she did." That laugh, it's like a bell I forgot I knew. "The way you say sorry, I've missed that." I asked who she was. He didn't answer at first. Then later he said softly, "My wife, Isla. She passed 3 years ago." I didn't know what to say. Just that sick, fluttering feeling in your chest when someone hands you a piece of themselves and you're not sure if you're meant to keep it. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He nodded. "It's strange, isn't it? The way people can echo back to us." For a while, I told myself it was grief. Grief makes you strange. Makes you reach for ghosts and living people. I didn't mind. Until the first photo. He handed it to me over breakfast. A Polaroid, worn and curling at the edges. It showed a woman standing in a garden, wind tugging at her dress. She looked like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my stomach twist. Same eyes. Same dimple. Same slope of the shoulders. "This is Isla," he said. He didn't blink. After that, things changed. Callum started finishing my sentences before I said them. He'd leave my favorite pastries out before I told him what they were. He'd hum a song I hadn't heard since childhood, one I never mentioned. "You played that on repeat when you were 17, he said once, smiling to himself. I hadn't told him that. I started pulling away, canceling plans, taking longer to respond to texts. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "You're afraid of this," he said one night, standing in the doorway of my flat. "I'm confused," I corrected. He didn't argue. He just looked at me like I'd forgotten something important. "You don't remember yet," he said. That's when he started showing up places. Outside my work. On the corner by the cafe I liked. In the park where I went to read. Never saying anything. Just watching. Calm. Still. Like a monument of waiting. Then came the journal. I found it in my mailbox, no stamp, no name. Inside were pages written in a neat, looping hand. Dozens of entries, all addressed to Isla. "Today you smiled with her smile. It caught me off guard. I thought maybe I was losing my mind again. You wore the green coat. The one I kept in the attic after the accident. I never told you it was my favorite. You still don't remember the lake. But you will. You always do." I called him. Screamed. Told him to stay away. He didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Just said, "I thought you'd be further along by now." I reported him. Told my landlord. Told my coworkers. But he hadn't threatened me. He hadn't touched me. He was just there, folding my past into his. The last time I saw Callum was outside the National Gallery. It was late. I'd stayed at the museum for the solitude, hoping to lose myself in the silence of paint and light. I came outside, and he was there, standing beneath a street lamp, holding something in his hand. It was a photograph. He handed it to me wordlessly. It was me, sleeping, in my bed, hair spread across the pillow like waves. I stared at it, my breath gone. "How did you?" He touched my hand. Gently. like we were saying vows. "You're home now," he said. Then he turned and walked into the dark. I never saw him again. But sometimes, in dreams, I'm standing at the edge of a lake I've never visited, wearing a green coat I've never owned. And Callum's there, standing in the water, calling me Isla. I met Eli in the most unremarkable way possible, waiting in line at a crowded cafe on Queen Street. It was raining, and we were both soaked. He turned to me, smiled, and said, "Toronto doesn't believe in umbrellas, huh?" I laughed. We made small talk. He bought me my drink. That night, he found me on Instagram. By the next week, we were texting every day. Eli was considerate, the kind of guy who remembered your work presentation and asked how it went, who sent playlists based on your mood, who could talk about art and politics and your weird childhood fears without blinking. Being around him was like taking a warm bath after a freezing walk home. It was easy to let him in. The first red flag didn't look like one. It was small, like a thread you tug without realizing it's holding everything together. We were at dinner, talking about our favorite childhood shows. "I was obsessed with Sailor Moon," I said. "I used to draw the characters in my notebooks." Eli smiled. "You mean Powerpuff Girls?" I laughed. "No, definitely Sailor Moon." He didn't blink. "No, babe, you told me it was Powerpuff Girls. You said your sister used to make fun of you for it." I paused. I had no sister. I didn't correct him. Just moved on. After that, it kept happening. Little moments where he'd correct me. "Didn't you say you hated Thai food?" I loved it. We'd had it on our second date. "You told me you never cry during movies." I cried during Up. He held my hand. "I thought you said your dad left when you were a kid." I never said that. He didn't. Each time, I'd freeze. Search my memory. Second-guess myself. Sometimes I'd defend it. Other times I'd wonder if I was wrong. Eli would just smile, not smugly but sweetly, and say, "It's okay. You probably forgot. You've been under a lot of stress." One night, I couldn't find my journal. I always kept it in the nightstand. When I asked Eli about it, he said, "You never write in a journal. You told me that when we met." He said it like fact. Not cruel. Not angry. Just true. I started to wonder if I'd made the whole thing up. My friends noticed the changes before I did. "You're quieter," my best friend Kelsey said. "You're always second-guessing yourself." I told her she was being dramatic. Eli was the first guy I actually felt safe with. He never raised his voice. Never guilt-tripped me. He was just patient. The night I knew something was wrong started with spilled wine. We were at his place. I knocked over a glass. He got strangely still. Not mad, just cold. "You always do this," he said. "What?" "You're clumsy. You knocked over that lamp last week. Remember?" I didn't. "I don't think that happened." He looked at me for a long time. Then said, "Are you okay? Like mentally? You've been really forgetful lately." That night, I sat in his bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror, wondering if I was sick. If I was actually losing time. Losing memory. Losing me. I started writing things down. Not in a journal, just sticky notes tucked inside drawers and pockets. "You wore the red sweater on Tuesday. You saw your mom this week. You love pad thai. You do right." It felt ridiculous. But it helped. Until they started disappearing. I'd find a note, torn in half. Or missing completely. When I asked Eli, he'd say things like, "Why are you writing these weird reminders? You're starting to scare me. You never liked red sweaters. You haven't seen your mom in a month." It didn't feel like gaslighting. It felt like drowning. Because he sounded so sure. And I wasn't anymore. Then one night, I woke up and he was reading one of the notes. He didn't know I saw him. He just stood there in the hallway, under the dim light, reading it over and over, like he was memorizing something. Then he tore it in half and walked away. I confronted him the next morning. "Why are you messing with my head?" His face shifted just slightly. The softness slipped. Just for a second. Then it was back. "I think you're projecting," he said calmly. "I'm worried about you." "I'm fine," I snapped. "I know who I am." He reached out, gently cupped my face, and whispered, "I just don't think you do." That was the last straw. I packed a bag. Blocked his number. Changed my locks. For days, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything he said. Every memory I thought was real. Every part of myself I'd handed over. I dug through my Google Photos. My texts. My old journals. Trying to find proof. Trying to anchor myself. I've been away from him for months now. I still flinch when someone corrects me. I still check my notes twice. but I'm remembering more clearly. And I'm not ashamed to admit that sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and check the mirror just to make sure I still look like myself. Because for a while, I really didn't.